Hey folks, Coach Angel here. On today's video, we're talking releases. Lots of them, lots of different types. We'll try to clear that up for you. Hopefully. See you in a minute. Okay folks, so today we're just going to go over some releases. Now on the table here in front of me you're going to see a bunch of different releases from different manufacturers. It's very important to understand the different types and how they work. So let's get started. Basically when you go to a bow shop, 95% of the time they're going to try to push a wrist strap release. And there's all kinds of grades. It's the most common and used for new beginners. But with that, you have to know which one is going to be right for you. Me personally, wrist straps, I'm not fond of them. They kind of promote some bad habits and punching. So I try to get away from anything that uses the index finger as the trigger. But we'll start out by going over the different types. Now, this is an index release wrist strap, as you can see. This thing's about 25, 30 years old. It's one of the first ones I used a very, very long time ago when they came out. Still works to this day, probably needs a new spring in it, but they can last as long as you need them to. But to go over what's modern these days, you start out from the low end and you go up all the way up to the high end. So for like a $30, $35, $40 mark, you're talking about something like this, which is a fabric almost wrist strap. Nothing very fancy. It's a caliper. Okay? This is what most people are going to start out with. Then you move to something like this. Still the same thing, but you can see a little bit better workmanship. This one's made by Tru-Ball. Now you're up to a leather strap, okay, with an actual belt buckle instead of just some Velcro. These ones are going to run you between $70 and $80, maybe a little bit more. But it's a good start. And the good thing about this is it's adjustable. You can adjust how far the throat is and everything. Gives you a little bit more adjustability, whereas in that one you basically have none. Then you get to something like this. Leather strap, real buckle. Now the difference with this one is it's not a caliper. This one hooks around the string. And it can be easily removed or taken off the string. Whereas these ones you're going to have to go ahead and clip on all the time. The deal with this is you have to look at what you're doing. So if you're hunting with this, which is basically what these wrist straps are made for, then you're going to have to take the time to look down, hook it on, and prepare to draw back. It makes you take your eye off your target for a few seconds. Usually not that big a deal. But again, this is open, so you don't have to worry about trying to physically get it hooked on there, especially when you're nervous, that sort of thing, as you're about to take a shot at an animal. For target shooting, they're just fine. But the mechanics in this are far better. Okay, this one I believe is made by Tru-Fire, but this is a really, really good release as far as like top of the line when you talk about wrist straps. Now you may wonder what this one is over here. It's a wrist strap, but it's not meant to fire. This is what they call a can't fire release. It's also made by Tru-Fire, and all it is a hook, and it lets you get the feeling of being able to pull back on a trigger, but there's nothing there. And it's used mostly in shops to try someone's draw length out, that sort of thing, so that they don't misfire a bow or dry fire a bow. My thing is you should never be shooting or pulling back a bow unless there's an arrow in there. So people use these to draw back when they're testing something out. I actually use these with beginners the first time that they're on a compound bow to have to be able to draw back and let down. There's no danger of them firing it because there's nothing there to fire, but you'd be surprised how many times I see them squeeze on that as hard as they can, because even though I told them don't fire, they forget that I actually said that. So this is a very, very good release to have in your box, especially if you just want to practice letdown drills or something like that. Now, we get to the handheld releases. Handheld releases are very, very simple, okay? But you gotta be careful. So something like this, I believe they used to call them a crack shot, but this is a cheaply made Chinese model of it that you find on Amazon. You see, it's just, you put this on there, and you set it, and you pull back on the button to fire it. It's It's made out of cheap plastic. Honestly, I wouldn't use this thing for much. It's not made very well, and if it's going to hold back the weight of a compound bow, I doubt it perform too many times before it fails. But again, you get what you pay for. But that's just an example of what's out there. You'll see a ton of stuff on Amazon and eBay and other places that has no real brand name on it. There are usually copies made in China. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with them, but most of the time you have to be careful about the manufacturing standards with these sort of things. Not always the best. Then you have your entry level here. Now these go for about $50 or $60, and they're very simple. It's not a caliper of any kind. Basically, you open it to load it, let it go, pull back, and when you're ready to fire, the string just comes out through there. Very simple, 50, 60 bucks. This is what you're getting. This is a 3-finger model. Okay? So it sits in your hand like this, and the thumb is what sets it off. A little better over here, but this is made for the hands of a small female or a small child. You'll see just as good. Caliper release, thumb button, adjustable thumb button to go back and forth. Now we're talking about your higher end releases. Now this one is a knock-on release that's manufactured by Carter, and this is a 2-finger release, so one goes in here, one's right there. You can adjust your trigger and your thumb barrel position. Really good, but when you talk about something like this, now you're up into the $180, $200 mark. But the difference is the quality that goes into building something like this is way different than what you find in a $50 release. This, believe it or not, is the Carter Wise Choice. It's the same basic release as this one if you look at them together. And some people will see them and wonder what's going on with that. Well, Carter manufactures this for knock-on. This is basically the same release, but this is a 2-finger, this is a 3-finger model. They also make it in a 4-finger. This is a new cool color they came out with. This is one of my releases. And like I said, you press it to lock on, and that's an important thing. How easy is it to get it onto the string and locked? This one, you put it around your D-loop, closed, you're locked on. You can actually leave this hanging on the bowstring and never have to worry about it again. So something like that when you're hunting is very handy because you can have that sitting on your D-loop. When you see the animal, you can just go ahead, set your hand into release, and begin to draw back. There's no fumbling around or anything with it because you know it's already on there. Now, these are all thumb button releases. They're trigger releases. The next type looks almost exactly the same, but they're very different. These are what we call tension-based releases. Now, this is a smaller model, okay? This one here is called a mini silverback. There's a full-size silverback that looks like that. But what they're based on is very simple. You set the poundage on these things for when they should go off, when they should break the shot. So if I'm holding, after the let off and all that, 8 pounds of pressure, you set this thing for about 9 or 10, and what will happen is you come to full draw while you're holding the safety, which is this button here. And when you're ready to shoot, all you do is you let go of the safety and start pulling. Once you hit between 9 and 10 pounds of pressure, this release will let go. Some people don't like that because it can become very, finicky, and it's based on your form. With my students, I teach them command release, meaning they can stop their shot at any time they want, and they don't punch the trigger at the same time. Something like this is for people who just have a lot of trigger panic, where they're trying to learn form and technique before they learn how to actually control their shots. Nothing wrong with them, I just don't prefer them. This is the same thing. This is the original version, okay? This is called the Evolution Plus. And they are basically the same release. Again, they're made by Carter. This is made by Carter for knock-on. This is just made by Carter. They do a great job, especially with people who are a little bit antsy about firing or tend to punch. This is a good go-between to start with for them. And then we come to the back tension releases. What do we mean by back tension? Well, by back tension, we're talking about a release that, as you're applying tension and a rotation happens, they go off. Now, you can punch a back tension release just like you punch anything else, regardless of what anyone tells you. They vary in the way that they're built. Back in the day, we had these releases that were made out of polymer, just had a little lip on them. And as you pulled back and you rotated your hand, they go off. This one here, which is made by Wayland's, it's called a Wayland's hooker. It's got just a hook on there, and you adjust the degree to which the hook is down. Very reminiscent of the old stuff that we used to have, but very simple. There's nothing to fail on this thing. So you place it in your hand, you pull back, applying all pressure to your thumb, because the idea is never to let this thing rotate back that way, otherwise it'll go off. And as you get back to position, you release pressure from the thumb, you start pulling, and as you pull, because remember, when you're pulling, you're not pulling straight back like this, you're pulling around. Well, when you're pulling around, this is going to rotate, and that's going to go off. So in its very basic sense, this is probably as simple as you can get. Now you have the true ball, and you have something like this, which is their HT, and there's moving parts in here. So you open it up to reset it, you hook it around your string. As you're firing, same thing, rotates until it goes off, and there you go. Now they have the standard versions of these, just like they have standard versions of these, which are made out of aluminum, and then they'll also have the brass versions. Some people like the brass versions because they're heavier in the hand and they feel more substantial. They get you a little bit more control. It's really a matter of preference. It's not very important. This is what they call a hybrid. True Ball came out with this a couple of years ago, and this one here, the HBX, all it is you can fire it with your thumb because that'll cause it to open, or you can fire it by pulling in back tension. Same thing, it's adjustable. It's not a true thumb trigger, but it can be fired like one, but still when you draw it back, you have to keep all the pressure on this index finger, otherwise it's going to go off. Now you'll see another Carter release here, okay? This is called a Total Control. This has got a magnetic trigger on it, okay, to reset it, and a hook, just like the other one did. Pull back, as you rotate, the moon will go off and release it, and then the shot fires. This one here, made by Carter for Nock-On, is pretty much the same. Again, you're seeing how they copy certain things on it for Nock-On, and then just turn it into a two-finger, because that's what most people who follow Nock-On like to shoot. John Dudley likes to shoot with two fingers because there's less involved with it. He feels that he has more control that way. I see nothing wrong with that. So they made this, which is the Two Smooth. Same exact mechanism, goes off exactly the same way. So it'll fit. The thing I like about these, a release like this, or like this, or like that, or like this, is that they give you more control because you can set your index finger inside here and then it rotates around your index finger. The ones that are completely open like this, you can have some issues with it. If you're taught to shoot it properly, there's never going to be a problem. But I just prefer, and for all my students, I have them in something like this, like that one, you know, something that's got that round trigger. Now, companies like Scott and B3 also manufacture them like this, where they have the index finger hole. Again, it has nothing to do necessarily with the manufacturer. It's more about you, what fits in your budget and what you're looking for. But whenever you're talking about something like this, you're really looking at something like the $200 range or higher. You're getting what you pay for. In case of Carter stuff, you're getting real serious quality. Same thing with B3 and Scott. It's just pick the model that you want, try it first, and see what works for you. The biggest problem I see is people ordering something in the mail via Amazon, whatever, and if there's no bow shop near you, you got no real other choice but to order from Amazon or Lancaster. The problem with that is you never get to actually feel what the release is like. If you're getting it from Amazon or some other reputable place that's online, you can send them back. If you're at a shop that has a multitude of different types of releases, you get to feel everything there and see what you like. But when you're getting something in the mail, and some people, unfortunately, they get it from other places, whatever it is, mail order, and they can't return them, and they wind up saying, hey, this thing is not for me. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't fit my hand right. Because in all these, they come in different sizes, too. Like I said, this little thing here is meant for kids, but this is a ladies and children's size or people with small hands, and this is a full adult size. you got to be able to tell what's going to fit you. Because just because it fits in your hand, when you're actually on the line firing is when it really matters. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't try it the right way. So you put 20 or 30 shots through it, you like it, you buy it. Ordering it online, you don't have that sort of advantage. So, if possible, always buy it at a shop where you can try it out. If not, ask your coach, if you have a coach, if he's got some different types of releases. That's why this is just a small smattering of what I keep in my box. And they should be able to help you. Try out as much as you can. And I'm not talking about like for 4 or 5 shots. I'm talking 20, 30, 40. Shoot with something for an hour. See how it goes. And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, try something else. But hopefully, they'll have something that'll help you. So, that'll do it for this video. It's one of our first videos we're putting up. The production value is not great. It's going to get better. But, if you have a question, just email us, highpowerarchery@gmail.com. Go to our site, highpowerarchery.com. Check out our podcast, because I put all kinds of information in those podcasts that as we go on will be corresponding to these videos. And if there's a video that you want to see made about a particular subject, let me know, and I'll help you out. Until then, this is High Power Archery signing off. Stay safe and shoot straight. We'll see you again.